What up, YouTube? It's knowledge and self-determination. So this will be my last Triple G video for right now, until something else hits the fan, of course, because I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna make any more videos, you know, ridiculing this guy, questioning his pound for pound status. But as of right now, this is the last one for the moment, right? This is not necessarily a response to Dream Chasing Boxing. Jeff, shout out to Jeff, shout out to TownBiz for the interviews with Virgil Hunter. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Andre Ward and Virgil Hunter for you know, keeping it real, keeping it 100 with Kovalev, crybaby bitch ass. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. I agree with Ticket TV. Shout out to Ticket TV. Shout out to all the dudes in the LDBC or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They really be on that boxing real heavy. If you subscribe to me, check them out. Listen. The two biggest Triple G's top opponents, Daniel Jacobs, Kell Brook, David Lemieux, necessarily in that order, right? Nobody ranked David Lemieux over Kell Brook. In fact, I think Kell Brook may have had, so far as opinion polls are concerned, had a better chance of beating Gennady Golovkin than David Lemieux, right? Kell Brook isn't a ranked middleweight. David Lemieux, he's not on anybody's pound for pound list so far as middleweights are concerned. He's not on anyone's list. Daniel Jacobs, before the fight last Saturday, I don't think Danny Jacobs made it on anyone's pound for pound list. With his resume, with the fighters that he has on his resume, and the best fighter on his resume being Peter Quillen, no, Daniel Jacobs wasn't on anybody's pound for pound list, right? David Lemieux wasn't on anybody's pound for pound list. Kell Brook, let's just slide him out of the equation for a second and only talk about middleweights. David Lemieux and Daniel Jacobs are two fighters that are now on Gennady Golovkin's resume. Danny Jacobs has Peter Quillen. Is David Lemieux a better fighter than Peter Quillen? No. Skill-wise, definitely not. He may have, definitely not. Now, David Lemieux's resume compared to Daniel Jacobs, he has a better resume. So far, overall contenders are concerned, and level of opposition, yes, he has a better resume than Danny Jacobs. Yes, I'll give him that. But I don't think anybody on David Lemieux's resume was as good as Peter Quillen, or as much of a top level opponent as that. So with that being said, Danny Jacobs and David Lemieux lost to Gennady Golovkin. Two fighters who were not considered pound for pound fighters by any stretch of the imagination. How can Golovkin beat these two and now be considered a pound for pound fighter? Like Virgil Hunter said, for looking good in his fights, looking good in that 23 fight knockout streak. It looked impressive. It looked good. And this is your claim to fame, looking good in a fight. I'm not understanding that. Floyd looked good in the fight against Canelo, and CJ Ross scored that fight a draw. It's imbecilic. I never considered Chocolatito a number one pound for pound fighter, simply because he looked good beating up smaller guys. The smaller divisions, the competition is not, there isn't a whole lot of, there are not a whole lot of high level fighters at the lower weights. There just aren't. There just aren't. Chocolatito is proof of that. He got beat by a guy in Sir Rungvisai whose last two opponents were fighting their debut fights before he fought this guy, who had absolutely no technique, no head movement, the only thing that moved on this kid was his legs and his hands. That's it. This dude, I mean, he was like a heavy bag for he was a human heavy bag in the ring. He lost to this guy, and he was considered the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Unbelievable. Basically all I'm saying is, I don't make pound-for-pound lists, and I probably won't ever make a pound-for-pound list because it's subjective, and at the end of the day, you know, it's just my opinion, and I could just make videos talking about what I don't like and what I do like about boxing and give you my opinion. I don't need a pound-for-pound list to do that. But in any event, Gennady Golovkin is not a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter in my book. You beat 2 guys at middleweight. You beat 2 guys at middleweight. Jamal Charlo just moved up to middleweight. Badu Jack just left super middleweight. Gennady Golovkin is conveniently moving up to 168 now. Conveniently, mind you. He wanted to break Bernard Hopkins' record. What happened to that? Because if he moves up to 168, how's he going to beat Bernard Hopkins' record? How was he going to beat the title defense? Because Bernard Hopkins not only unified the middleweight division, he defended his position as the king of the middleweight division. He was the king. He was the middleweight kingpin. And how long of a streak did he go on? I mean, it was bananas. I thought he wanted to do that. Why isn't anybody bringing that up? Nobody's talking about him wanting to beat Bernard Hopkins' record. Now that's null and void. Now I'm not. It's looking like a little bit of funny business to me. But anyway, because I actually put this in my video. I've said this already. I thought Danny Jacobs was a good fighter before the Triple G fight. I didn't count him out. Mostly everybody counted this kid out. I didn't count this kid out because even though he doesn't have a deep resume, looking at his skill set, like everybody did with Golovkin, looking at his skill set is how they gauged him being a good fighter. And yes, he is a good fighter, just gauging it off of his skill set, right? Basing it off his skill set. But nobody put Danny Jacobs in anybody's top anything list just based off his skill set. But they did that with Golovkin, just based off his skill set and how good he looked in his fights. Nobody did that with Danny Jacobs. So there could potentially be some glaring contradictions there. But in any event, listen, Golovkin, to me, has to do more. He has to do more. You know, he has to do more. That's just plain and simple. He has to do more. Defend all. Now that you've all but sewn up the middleweight division, save for one belt, Billy Joe Saunders, which I don't think anybody has Billy Joe Saunders beating Gennady Golovkin. Now that you all pretty much sewn up the middleweight division, what are you going to do in the interim? Once you get that belt from Billy Joe Saunders, you're going to drop it and go up to 168. Man, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what to say about all this other than that kid is not top pound for pound fighter in my book. He's not. My list doesn't even exist. But if it did, he wouldn't be a top 5 pound for pound fighter, beating 2 top tier middleweights, and that's all he's had to do. That's all he's had to do. Him and Chocolatito Gonzalez have gotten. They basically took the yellow brick road to pound for pound stardom. Lomachenko has done more in 8 fights. He has done more in 8 fights than Chocolatito. Well, maybe. So far as competition, level of opposition, yeah, he's had better level of opposition and competition than Chocolatito, yeah. And looked good in these fights. Not being a human battering ram, but actually looked good in showing a high level of skill and technique and fundamentals. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut the video. I'm going to make it less than 10 minutes. Look, beating David Lemieux and Danny Jacobs doesn't put you in top pound-for-pound contentionship as far as I'm concerned. Move up to 168, and then we can talk about it. Completely clean out the middleweight division, then we can talk about it. Peace.